What are movies if not a way to escape this crazy reality? And while many films simply allow the audience to do so for 2 hours or more, not all works of cinema have quite the same agenda. Sometimes movies want to draw attention to their own concepts as fiction, or further still, force the viewers to consider their own roles in watching the movie, and even mocking them for expecting what the marketing sold them. These films judge the hell out of you for pressing play. And with that being said, I'm Ben Ray from WhatCulture.com, and this is 10 horror movies that judge you for watching. Number 10. Jason X. By the time any horror franchise goes to space, you know they're out of good ideas. And of course, Jason X did exactly that. Midway through the movie, the protagonist, Rowan, explains that she shut down the task force that experimented with ways to kill Jason. And when they realised he couldn't be killed, they simply put him on ice. It's not too difficult to see the parallels here between this and the movie franchise itself. A shambling, unkillable beast of an IP was ultimately put on ice for an entire decade after Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, before it is dug up again with Jason X. But the real kicker comes when Rowan takes a thinly veiled crack at both the studio executives and the audience for watching. Unfortunately, some people who were too smart for their own good felt that this creature couldn't be killed and was simply too valuable to be filed away. In the end, it all comes down to money. The fact that Rowan didn't directly stare into the camera lens while saying this shows restraint. Number 9. The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods is a gloriously meta-horror comedy that takes the typical setup and flips it entirely on its head. In the third act, it's revealed that the cliché cabin scenario is actually part of a ritual to satisfy the Ancient Ones. By setting up these familiar horror situations around the world and manipulating the outcome, the Ancient Ones are normally left satisfied and agree to remain underground without disturbing Earth. Now clearly the Ancient Ones are a substitute for the horror fans, who for decades have gladly paid top dollar to see the same thing over again. Hell, Bradley Scientist character Hadley even takes the time to lament the fact, across the whole entire rituals, he's never seen something as truly as uncanny as a merman. And the fact that tropes are presented as rituals in this film really just crystallise how utterly overdone nudity and gore is. To top off the metaphor, when the survivors refuse to bow down to the Ancient Ones end the movie by bursting out of the earth and destroying the world, referring to if the audiences don't get what they want, they'll make Hollywood pay for it by voting with their wallets. Number 8. Scream 2. Scream 2 is a rare horror sequel that matches, and if not exceeds, the original. It kicks off with a banger of an opening scene that points Ghostface's knife right in the viewer's face. The film opens in a cinema where a couple are attending a sneak preview of a movie, Stab, which is based on the events of the first film, and the screening is absolutely wild. Full of fans dressed up as Ghostface, hollering and running around. Wes Craven is seemingly making fun of horror fans with their sometimes troubling passion of the genre. But things get really judgy when Maureen gets stabbed in the cinema during the movie by the new Ghostface. When she stumbles around bleeding to death, everyone in the screen assumes it's part of the act, and even a publicity stunt. Basically, Scream 2 is judging you for getting kicks out of someone dying, or at least the gore for getting kicks out of it. Number 7. Rubber. Horror films, or really the horror genre, don't get as strange as this. Rubber centers around a sentient tire, which is made of rubber, with telekinesis powers that can kill people. Yep. Rubber in many ways is a deconstruction of the slasher genre, as it opens with a sequence of a cop, Chad, explaining to the audience that this is a homage to No Reason Principle, where things just happen in the film for no discernible reason. Throughout the film, it cuts back to the crowd spectating the rubber tire's gory murders, as they are clearly intended to be the surrogate audience for the movie, and moreover horror fans themselves. The audience is shown to be fickle and difficult to placate throughout the film, leading to most of them being killed off. And to top it all off, the film ends with the tire being reincarnated into a tricycle, serving as a commentary on Hollywood reboots, and confirming the audience's willingness to watch the same thing over and over again. Number 6. Hollow Man. Though marketed as a glossy sci-fi riff on The Invisible Man, Hollow Man is really a commentary on sleazy society, and a satire about what men with power are capable of. Namely that they will always use this power to subjugate women. Instead of turning into a badass supervillain, Kevin Bacon's Dr. Sebastian Cain doesn't just become a murderer, but a rapist and an abuser of women. And few who have seen this film will forget those wince-inducing scenes where Sebastian uses his invisibility to rape his neighbour, nor the scene where he molests one of his co-workers. As much as we would love to consider the fantasy of what it would be like to be invisible, this film brings it crashing back down to earth. by reminding viewers that in reality, a lot of men wouldn't just simply rob a bank or sneak into a concert, they'd use their power for something much more vile. Number 5. The House That Jack Built. Lars von Trier is both an excellent filmmaker and one of cinema's most greatest trolls, and the epitome of his clear disdain for his audience was felt during the most recent film he made, The House That Jack Built, a 155-minute exercise on chastising viewers. This horror film was basically sticking 2 middle fingers up to those who wanted to see a serial killer movie. Instead, Lars von Trier's blacker than black comedy is a movie designed to leave the viewer uncomfortable, from a scene where Jack murders 2 children and forces their mother to have a picnic with the corpses, to another where he cuts a woman's breasts off and turns them into a wallet. This film is really designed to challenge people who value the entertainment of serial killers, but it's a brilliantly executed experiment from start to finish. Number 4. Revenge. The overwhelming majority of rape revenge films are directed by men, and so there's generally a discomforting tension between the subject matter and the fact that for the most part, these films also leer into the naked, traumatized female form. But 2017's Revenge was directed by a woman, and so it's a very different beast entirely. With Coralie behind the camera, Revenge is shot through a slightly different lens, satirizing the male gaze, with its initial early lingering glimpses on the protagonist Jen's scantily clad body. But once the rape happens, which is largely depicted off screen, the film flips, focusing on Jen's reinvention as a vengeful predator. The finale quite ingeniously inverts the typically barely dressed final girl fleeing from the psycho killer by having Jen pounce on her last abuser, Richard, while he's taking a shower. The final showdown sees a nude Richard desperately trying to fend off Jen, who eventually kills him. And to top it all off, the finale has Jen staring directly at the audience, as if to say, how do you think this was going to go? Number 3. Videodrome. David Cronenberg's legendary 1983 sci-fi horror film follows the TV bigwig Max Wren, who in pursuit of the next big thing stumbles upon a titular broadcast signal which is comprised of brutal sexual violence. Cronenberg's film is a tricky beast, at once serving as a commentary on our hopelessness being enslaved by mass media and their ability to warp the human brain, and also in many ways a shining example of it. Videodrome is certainly a smart film, but its blackly comical social satire both critiques the corrupting of entertainment media and exists as a thoroughly deprived piece of work itself. It leans into growing the debate about horror movies and censorship at the time, particularly in the UK, as it was known as a video nasty. And by indulging the audience's every desire, it basically told the viewers to eat up this sickened filth, you insatiable degenerates. Number 2. All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. All the Boys Love Mandy Lane spent 7 years on the studio shelf, before finally seeing the light of day in the US, due to the distributor going bankrupt. The marketing for the movie's eventual release unsurprisingly leaned into the fact that a young star, Amber Hand, was seemingly running around in tight clothes for 90 minutes, while she tried to escape her murderer. But All the Boys Love Mandy Lane wasn't about that at all. The film's big conceit that Mandy isn't a delicate flower, like it first appears to be. She's the mastermind behind the killings, and even the murders of her accomplices. It ends with Mandy escaping scot-free with one other survivor, Gareth, who of course never considered the possibility that Mandy was behind it. Director Jonathan Levine is thumbing his nose up at the audience themselves for being under the spell of Mandy, who, whilst appearing like the typical final girl, is actually more Michael Myers than Laurie Strode. Number 1. The Devil's Chair. This cult British horror film revolves around a man, Nick West, facing off against the torturous, seemingly supernatural chair, which killed his lover at the start of the movie. The film is filled with Nick's sardonic voiceover narration, which smashes the fourth wall to pieces in the third act of the film, when the chair is used once again, and all hell breaks loose. Nick's voiceover suddenly turns to address the viewer, seemingly questioning their own choice of viewing, and even the quality of the movie. It pulls no punches and feels like it comes out of nowhere, and really does chastise whoever's watching this. Here is a gonzo horror movie flying wildly off the rails, and goes in on the audience for even daring to take part. It's totally tongue-in-cheek of course, but still gives the audience a moment to pause, and consider what the hell they're watching. And that's our list. That's 10 horror movies that judge you for watching them. Can you think of any more? Let us know down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I've been Ben Roy Turner, and you can follow me at Ben Roy Turner, or follow us all at What Culture. And until next time, make sure no other movie gives you the side eye.